Hello, dear viewer, and welcome to another episode of the Catholic League Forum. I'm Mike McDonald, Director of Communications at the Catholic League, and joining me today is Bill Donohue, President and CEO of the Catholic League. So, Bill, the end of a year, start of a new year, so figured we should take a look at the Catholic League's 2022 year in review.
And you did a great job. I used to do it, and I've handed it over to you. The year in review, 'cause it takes a lot of time and effort, but it's good because not everybody has the time to go through and read every one of our news releases or go through Catalyst. We get our monthly publication. So basically, what we've done is to give a highlight of some of the major things that we've been involved in and issues that are of interest to the Catholic Church in general. We're not going to go through all these issues. We just signal 4 issues that we want to flag that we consider to be the four most important issues that we dealt with in 2022.
Yeah. So first off, Bill, the Catholic League, we've done a lot of big projects over the last year, but the biggest one had to be our upcoming Disney film. We did a lot of the groundwork, a lot of the legwork in 2022, put a lot of effort into it. The trailer's out now on our website, so I definitely, dear viewer, recommend going to catholicleague.org, watching the trailer there. We'll have a link in the description below so you can easily find it. But it's coming together phenomenally. I'll be out early in January of 2023, and Jason Meath did a good job. So that was a really big project that we undertook. And
we got some
exciting.
great people in it, too. I have yet to myself seen, it's going to be about 50 minutes long. We're shooting for January the 9th, but don't make that in stone because these things are fluctuating a little bit. You got insurance people and lawyers and whatnot coming at the last minute and whatnot. But that's what we would shoot for. Certainly, if you look at our website, you'll find out. We did this because we wanted to make a cultural marker. We were upset, as a lot of Americans were, when Disney got involved, as they shouldn't have, in opposing a parental rights bill in Florida, which said you cannot be teaching kids about sexuality and transgenderism and the like, and planting seeds that you should change your sex, K through 3rd grade. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and 8-year-olds. Disney tried to upend that. And that's when I decided we got to do something about it. Hence, the movie is about the evolution of Disney from family-friendly to anti-family-friendly. And that's going to come out in January. And that was the most exciting and certainly the most expensive project that we've done all year.
Yes, absolutely. But not the only project we did.
Bill.
No. Again, we're involved in a lot of different things. And this year we filed an amicus brief for 303 Creative LLC versus Elenis. That's the sort of master cake
before the Supreme Court.
Right, part 2 before the Supreme Court. They just heard oral arguments here in December, and they'll be making a ruling on it in probably June. That's normally when they do First Amendment rulings. So all eyes focus on that, but our amicus brief, it was great. It was written by a good friend of yours, Kathy Gallagher, and her firm out in Pittsburgh. And they did a lot of good work for us, and very strong hitting. And obviously, we are on the side of the website designer in this case, Lori Smith, who doesn't want to be forced to make a website for gay, homosexual weddings.
Right. She certainly has no problem making websites for gays.
Right, but the weddings.
The wedding symbolizes behavior.
Right.
Which, as a Christian, she has every right to say, we don't accept that. And the government has no right to then tell you that your religious-based conscientious objections don't matter. And that's why we're involved. It's a religious liberty case, and it's a free speech case. She has her own speech. Who's somebody to tell, as the example I gave, are you going to tell a Jewish artist that you should be required that to put a swastika on a picture or a poster of a synagogue? Doesn't he have a right to object to that? So what's at stake here is free speech and religious liberties before the Supreme Court. I expect we're going to win next June.
Yes, definitely. And speaking of the Supreme Court, I think any year in review of 2022 would be remiss in not bringing up probably the biggest victory we've seen in the Supreme Court for the longest time for our side was the overturning of Roe v. Wade back in June of this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, and clearly the Catholic League is one of many voices. We certainly can't take credit for that. One of many voices, but we've been persistent. We've been on this issue for a long, long time, as everybody knows. We give credit to the Catholic Church and to the bishops and to the Vatican for supporting the bishops on this, because the Catholic Church alone, as an institution, in the 1970s, 1973, when that decision was made on January 22nd of 73, we stood alone in opposing abortion. Now, we're happy to say others have come on board since. But quite frankly, this was a great victory for the Catholic Church more than any other institution in overturning Roe v. Wade. Now, the battle's not over. It's still legal to kill the kids, particularly in the more liberal states, which they claim to be interested in human rights and the interest of the dispossessed. For some reason, they don't seem to be inclusive, though, of the unborn.
No, and the battle not being over, this unfortunately led to one of the things that we were heavily involved with in this year. You'll probably remember back in May, this draft leaked out, and the secular progressives, the left, they just completely lost their minds. And one of their favorite institutions to target were Catholic churches and pro-life pregnancy centers. And so we've been documenting that throughout the course of the year, making notes. We've reached out to the FBI, the DOJ, all the important people that should be doing something about this, but we've only been hearing crickets back from them. And even worse, what we've been seeing lately is the FBI in particular, along with the DOJ, which is over them in government, are targeting pro-life Americans using FACE Act, Freedom of Access, Clinic Act entrances. It's really just heavy-handed, lopsided, lack of justice.
Yeah, there's an asymmetry here. I mean, but there's a consistency here too, though. The people who don't mind and support violence in the room, we're talking about child abuse in the womb. There are the same people who are involved with these bloody attacks on Catholic churches and pro-life centers. We're the ones who are supposedly the supporters of violence. There have been there have been no instances of Catholics or Christians or Jews or Muslims, anybody attacking Planned Parenthood and burning them down. Lots of examples of arsonists against Catholic churches and pro-life centers. The violence is going one direction, people, but the Department of Justice and the FBI don't seem to have any enthusiasm about prosecuting these people for their violence, Jane's Revenge and other groups, but they do come after nonviolent people on our side. So this kind of asymmetry is morally reprehensible.
Yeah. And you do have to wonder at the end of the day, Bill, with the most devout Catholic president we've ever had in the White House.
Self-described.
Self-described, obviously. He sets the tone for this administration, and they're not doing enough to counter this violence.
Well, he's pro-abortion.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously. So we're going to obviously have to keep this fight up in the new year. We'll have some things coming up on that front. But speaking of the Biden administration, it's not just abortion that this administration is promoting. This is probably the fourth big thing we had to deal with this year, was just wholesale support for transgenderism out of the Biden White House. And dear viewer, I know you watch a lot, but just in case we got any new ones out there, transgenderism is the notion that a man can become a woman and vice versa, that the sexes are completely interchangeable. And that is something that is being promoted by Biden, the Biden administration, and not just promoted as a good in society, but particularly a good for children, that children should be able to make up their own minds. And it's not just limited to Biden targeting children, Bill. He's also going after Catholic hospitals, Catholic doctors, forcing them. Back this fall, we had the big push from our members to get them to speak out against Section 1557 in Obamacare, and our members were great on that front. Really let the department have it, HHS, Health and Human Services, have it there.
But that's what Catholics have to understand. You've got a guy who calls himself a devout Catholic as president. This is the most anti-Catholic presidential administration in the history of the United States. He's at war with, if you want to tell Catholic doctors and hospitals that unless you perform genital mutilation and chemical castration on a young person, on a minor, and so they would have flipped their sexes, so they think they can. They really can't. But if you don't go along with that, Catholic doctors and hospitals, we're going to take away your funding. In other words, we're going to close you down. To think that you would think that the most dedicated Catholic-hating atheists would not go quite this far. The fact that this is happening under the Biden administration is absolutely stunning. I don't know how much in charge Biden is on this, but it's happening under his watch, and quite frankly, I don't think he's as cognitively impaired as some people seem to think he is. He has to know what's going on here. This is demonic, that you would punish Catholic doctors and hospitals for forcing them, if they don't go along with these kind of sexual surgeries, which is morally reprehensible. it should be illegal, and that's why he's been caught up in the courts. I think
Yeah.
we may eventually win this in the courts, but we shouldn't have to fight it in the courts in the first place.
Right, absolutely. We've had a couple of big victories in the
Right.
court, but undoubtedly Biden and team will take it to
Right.
the Supreme Court next year. So we'll obviously still be on this issue for a while to come. But good signs, and with our great members, obviously we'll be able to do a lot of good things to counter this. And it is unfortunate, as you're saying, Bill, that the only thing that we have really protecting us right now from a supposedly devout Catholic president are the court systems.
Right.
But this is the world we live in.
Take what we can get.
Yeah, take what we can get, unfortunately. But I don't want to leave.
It's been a great year.
Yeah, it's been a great year, and we've had a lot of big wins. Unfortunately, we can't compress a year into 10 minutes. So, dear viewer, do check out the website CatholicLeague.org. We'll have a link in the description below. You can read the full report there, see everything that we've been involved with, a lot of big initiatives, and a lot of big victories, even though at times it doesn't feel that way. Bill, is there anything else?
No, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year and stay with us next year because we're never going to give up at the Catholic League.
Amen. Well, dear viewer, thank you for watching. If you give this video a like and subscribe, as always, that helps us greatly beat Big Tech algorithm, get more people involved in these fights because we need it. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Bill.
All right, Mike.